I wanted to share a story from my experience in middle school that is probably a little embarrassing for me. A lot of stories of me in middle school are probably embarrassing for me, but I wanted to share this one because it is, I think, a little bit funny and a little bit profound and a little bit different than most of my experiences in middle school. So, to preface, I was probably what most people would call a really good kid in middle school. I was generally very kind, generally very considerate, didn't really get in trouble, didn't do all my homework, but I was generally, I would say, a good kid. And I like to have fun and occasionally break the rules, but it was really within pretty moderate constraints. For example, in middle school, we had pink slips where if it was basically a pink sheet of paper that maybe got sent home to your parents, you got 3 pink slips, you go to the principal's, whatever. It doesn't seem like a big deal now. Back then, to me, it seemed like a big deal. I really didn't want to get a pink slip, and I didn't get any. I got 0 pink slips all the way through middle school. And for example, a lot of my close friends, I remember seeing I think some of my friends would get 2 in a day sometimes, but I never got any. Except on, I think it was literally the second to last day of 8th grade. And I still didn't get a pink slip, but I did get in trouble. And I went to the same school from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then I left to go to a different school after that. And this school was really small, so there were maybe 30 kids in my grade, 33 or something, maybe 15 to 17 boys in my grade. So pretty much all of us had some kind of relationship with each other, whether that be, friends or enemies or frenemies or, even if it's just everyone knew everyone. And, and so three other guys and I got basically we got in a fight. And like I said, I generally thought of myself, at least, as a very kind kid, and that was sort of reciprocated by my friends, by my classmates, by my teachers. Generally, people thought of me as very considerate, and I still strive to be considerate, but I think especially back then I really wanted to be, I really did my best to be kind to other people, especially for a kid of that age. And of course, very far from perfect, as this story will illustrate. And that's kind of part of why I'm telling it, actually, is that, we all contain multitudes. I surely do and did. And so anyway, on the second to last day of 8th grade, myself and 3 other boys, got in a scuffle. And so it was myself, and I'll just make up 3 names, call them Bob, George, and Greg. And so I think George, who I myself, was probably frenemies with. We were very good friends, but he had bullied me at different times, and I think in retaliation I had sprained his wrist one time, I remember, and he was much bigger than me and was trying to slap me, and I ducked and twisted his wrist or something. So we had scuffles in the past, and we had a long sort of frenemy friendship, a relationship before that and after that. But this isn't about George. George and Bob were getting in a scuffle, and Bob and I were also good friends, but Bob came to the middle school late and had something of an anger issue. And man, I loved Bob, though. He was a funny guy. But anyway, I don't know if my camera is moving around, but this story's going all over the place, but just bear with me. So, for example, Bob came maybe in 3rd grade. In 2nd grade, I remember him coming to like do like a visiting day or something before to see if he was going to transfer. And I remember him like I like tried to be his friend as being very, my kind self. And he like did the loser symbol to me. And I was so confused. Like, who is this person? I was my 7-year-old self. And so anyway, Bob came in ready to rumble, always shouting at people. And because of that, of course, as middle schoolers, everyone just wants to make him shout because he's already shouting. And so anyway, George, who really seemed to live for getting people riled up, was getting him riled up. I think George was trying to slap him or something. And this just shows, the painful irony of a middle schooler is, oh my gosh, there are cops right now, so I'm gonna really make sure they don't see me with my phone. The painful irony of myself having sort of, middle school wars with George, but now George and Bob were having the war, and that sort of I found my own personal glee in it. Anyway, I'm certainly, this is why I want to share this story. It's just the aspects of yourself that you're maybe a little ashamed of, and embarrassed of, but oftentimes those embarrassing aspects can help you maybe find even more compassion for people that you have anger towards, or whatever the case may be. And everyone in this story, I feel some combination of compassion and judgment for, including myself. But anyway, getting back to the humorous side of it, and I really had never really done anything like this before, and really never since. But so, at least not to the best of my recollection. So I think George was sort of trying to slap Bob, and Bob was just going wild. And I think Greg, who was sort of the least of close with me, but we were all kind of, at least friends of friends. And Bob and Greg actually were probably the closest of everyone in this story at the time to each other. And and so I think like Greg was kind of getting in on the action a little bit, and Bob was just soaring around like a freaking raging bull. And I think I ran up behind him, and I took the back of his shirt, and I put it over the front of his head, like over his face. And he was just so much bigger than me, and like at the time had like just red faced and just going crazy. And it was almost like, the feeling of like fighting a bull. That was the feeling. Like I like ran up behind him, and I like put his shirt over his head, and I held it, and I yelled to Greg. I yelled, slap him. I don't know if George was still involved at this point, but yeah, I think it was probably there was a bunch of people around. And then Greg came up and started slapping. I feel so bad about this, but there's so much context. Greg started slapping Bob with the shirt over his face. And the thing is, Bob was a natural showman, so there's a lot of this that where he didn't just try to take the shirt off. Like he knew the moment. Like he seized the moment. Like I know he must have, because instead of trying to get the shirt off, he just with me sort of holding on, or maybe I let go. He starts just throwing punches wild without being able to see, just bellowing. It was beautiful, just bellowing. And then like Greg is dodging in and out, slapping him with the shirt on. And then I think he like sensed where he was, and I think he like ran and he grabbed Greg and he picked him up, and then he ran and slammed him into the lockers. Like it was like fully out of like a early 2000s movie. Like and I think with the massive crash, like I think we were in between classes, and there's like, so probably at least half of our grade was sort of around in the hallway. And I and most of the others sort of retreated into the background. That was a cowardly move of me, but man, and long story short, the teachers came out, got involved, and everyone sort of told the full picture. And so, long story short, the next day, which was the last day of 8th grade, I spent lunch period, and the school I went to was a Quaker school, and I spent the lunch period of my last day of 8th grade, which would have been in the cafeteria that we'd eaten at every day. It was sort of a momentous moment because I'm never going to be there again. I was going to leave that school for good. I spent the last lunch of 8th grade in the principal's office with Bob, George, and Greg, eating chicken wings, which was the lunch of the day, in silence, sitting at a table in the principal's office. And I remember and there was a lot of tension. Like I said, George and I had, we had a certain kind of friendship. We also had, at least I had a lot of resentment and anger towards him. And, based on how he treated me, I'm sure there were some mixed feelings he had towards me, at least. And Greg, I wasn't that close with him, but similarly, like, I think Bob was, because Bob and Greg were good friends. We were all good friends with Bob, but I think everyone was really mad, and especially understandably, Bob was really mad. And it was just tense and awkward and a little funny, but like, we sat there in silence, and we were like, oh, we're in the principal's office, missing the last day of lunch. Like, I felt ashamed. Like, I was like, I'd gone all of middle school without a pink slip, and here I am in the principal's office, my last day, missing what could have been a fun celebratory goodbye lunch. And we sat, it was maybe 45 minutes to an hour, sat there eating our chicken wings in silence, and it was just us four, and like the principal was in the other room, and with essentially no words having been spoken, by the end of that hour, we were all friends again. We were all, or better friends than we'd ever been. And like, it was something about just being in each other's presence, regardless of even who we were or what we'd done to each other, or it just helped you understand. I think we were just there we were forced to be present with each other. And even as little assholes, that was a beautiful thing. That was a beautiful thing.